Welcome to the Big Talk podcast, where we chat all things business and personal development related, totally unfiltered and unscripted. I'm your host, Amanda Davies, and I'm here to help you transform into the leader you were born to be, stand apart from the competition, and most importantly, share your message with the world in a big, big way. Are you ready? Welcome once again to Big Talk. Hey everyone, welcome back to this week's episode of the podcast. I'm excited to be here with you, as always, because this topic I think is going to really land for so many of you. And the reason I say that is because this is probably one of the number one concerns, challenges, wobbles that certainly clients come to work with me on when they join one of my programs, and just stuff that I hear from doing so many discovery calls and speaking to so many people in this industry. And it's all about imposter syndrome. Let's be frank. There are so many people out there that are really suffering with this sense of worthiness and feeling like an imposter when it comes to their business, obviously other parts of their lives as well, because how we show up and do one thing tends to be replicated in how we do many things in our life. So there's this kind of sense of imposter syndrome that hangs around for a lot of people. And I've found that this imposter syndrome is there at various stages of people's business too. So if you're just getting started or if you're a bit further down the line, it's kind of like sometimes there are different levels of imposter syndrome. So I want to get into all of that. But what today's episode is all about is, yes, we're going to look at this imposter syndrome thing, but as kind of part of this bigger picture, which is really about how do you stand out as a coach in 2023? How is it that there are some people who seem to have incredible confidence and certainty in what they're selling and forging ahead and making waves in their coaching practices? And then there are others who just seem to be kind of stuck at the starting line or really struggle to kind of move past particular challenges. And there's all sorts of reasons and a whole host of different issues that kind of go on behind the scenes here. So I want to talk about this. I want to talk about how do you stand out as a coach in 2023? How can you become that coach that really creates incredible transformations and breakthroughs for your clients without feeling like a huge imposter? All right, so that's kind of what we're going to talk about today. I've got a lot of content to share with you, so definitely put me in your ears, go on a walk with me or take some notes. But, just really feel into what I'm saying with this episode too. And I'm going to share with you some practical examples and tips and things that you can do to really start shedding a light on this for yourself and starting to move past it as well. And so I think the best place to start with tackling this topic is just for us to get really honest, okay, about where we're at in our coaching businesses. And so if you're able to, obviously I'd invite you to put one hand on your heart, one hand on your belly, and just take a couple of deep breaths and really start to feel into where are you at in terms of your energetic body, your emotional body, when it comes to your confidence as a coach. How confident are you? Not just in terms of building your business, but where are you at really in terms of being confident enough to support someone with some of the deeper mindset challenges they're experiencing, some of those deeper blocks, energetic blocks, subconscious blocks? How are you feeling around that on a scale of 1 to 10? 10 being the most confident, 1 being not confident at all. So as you're feeling into that, I want you to be really honest with yourself, okay? Because I think the key to personal and spiritual growth is self-honesty. And that really means looking at, and certainly not beating ourselves up or anything like that, but really having an honest conversation about where some of our blind spots might be, if we can see them, or maybe where some of our areas for improvement are as well. And this is just about being someone on a journey of growth. And it's not to disregard our strengths and the things that we know that we do brilliantly well and our gifts. But I think as coaches, we got into this industry because we are all on a path of spiritual and personal development. I often say that coaching isn't just a career, it's a calling. Okay, so the calling part really does call us forward as well. It calls us forward on this path of greater learning and greater insights into ourselves. So then we can obviously offer that to our clients too, because really we can only take our clients as far as we've been on this journey. And so a huge part of our job description, if you like, is to really get honest with ourselves and to be committed to understanding where our areas of growth and opportunity are. So I think that's just a really nice place to start this podcast, with just a bit of a sense check around how confident are you? Not from a place of beating yourself up, as I said, but just a place of actually, do you know what? This is something that I feel I could really work on or improve on. This is maybe where I'm feeling a little underconfident, because let me tell you kind of what I see a lot of. I see and hear a lot from coaches. I've done probably thousands now of discovery calls throughout the course of my business. These last 9 years, I've worked with literally hundreds of clients. And one of the things that people say to me a lot is that they feel a bit nervous, particularly at the start of their coaching journey, or if they're just getting started. But I've actually heard this quite a lot from people who are even quite established as coaches too, if they're really honest, which is they feel a little bit nervous or out of their depth or a little bit underconfident sometimes when clients come to them with some of those really deep subconscious blocks, stuff that maybe has held them back for a long time, whether that's old patterns or old wounding or old beliefs that just seem to be really stubborn and can't shift. So many coaches, new and aspiring coaches, have sort of said to me, look, I want to be able to offer people the right tools and frameworks and support in these moments, but I don't feel confident doing that. And typically, Amanda, what I do is I offer a lot of practical solutions, or I start cheerleading them versus really coaching them on those deeper issues. I've also had people say to me, well, I'm in the spiritual industry. So perhaps, for example, they'll draw on their spiritual tools or Reiki or healing work to really help shift some of those challenges and blocks too, which is really beautiful work. And what they also notice is people don't quite get that resolution at the psychological and emotional level. And so this is a huge part of my work, which is we need to work on different levels. We need to work at the psychological level, the emotional level, and yes, the energetic and the spiritual level too, in order to really create incredible transformational results for our clients. Okay. So this is what I hear. And I also hear a lot of people sort of say, and this is a tricky one, but I hear a lot of people sort of say, maybe I've just kind of, when it comes to the mindset work, I feel like I've maybe just taken on and I'm starting to regurgitate some of the mindset advice that maybe I've heard from previous coaches or stuff that I've read in books or motivational TED Talks that I've listened to. But it feels like there's this kind of misalignment piece. I feel like I'm not really getting into the depth or walking the walk as much as I could be around helping people move past some of these subconscious deeper blocks, these lasting kind of where lasting change really happens. And so people kind of confide in me that they feel sometimes like they're offering Band-Aids rather than kind of open heart surgery, if that makes sense. Okay. And what I really want to kind of say here is this doesn't make you a bad coach. This doesn't make you a bad person or a bad healer or whatever you do. It really doesn't. But I think it goes back to that honesty piece that I was saying around people have real problems and real challenges. And obviously what we're not doing is offering therapeutic advice here or working with them in a therapeutic capacity. However, as coaches, as life coaches, career coaches, wellness coaches, we really need to be able to move people beyond those subconscious blocks and challenges that just keep coming up, the stuff that keeps coming up to be looked at over and over and over again. And I guess it's for these reasons as well that people sort of say to me that they're worried that maybe their clients don't quite get the level of transformation that they really could be and that they desire to because of this. And I think when you add all of this up, it can feel very destabilizing. I work with a lot of clients who sometimes feel a little bit disembodied, I think is probably the right word, and maybe lack some internal safety around the coaching support that they provide. Again, this doesn't make them bad people or bad coaches. Okay, and I'm going to get into this in a bit more in a moment, but it's like you can be great at what you do and also know that there is a missing piece, because we all know by now, and if you've been following me for any amount of time, you know that that subconscious mind piece, the shadow, what's happening at the energetic level, and yes, the energy of the body as well, is what really keeps people stuck and bound to old patterns, old beliefs, old behaviors, old wounds that they just can't seem to resolve. Okay, that secretly then kind of drive their life from behind the scenes. And this is why in traditional coaching models too, you can have the best will in the world and you can have the most positive, I'm doing the bunny quotes, like the quote unquote positive mindset, but still fall back into old self-sabotaging behaviors, old patterns, old kind of losing momentum, kind of feeling like, yeah, really excited, and then actually putting one foot on the brake too, because we're working only with the level of the conscious mind in most coaching models versus working with the subconscious, which is where all of that lasting and incredible transformation takes place. And I think part of this, if I was to sort of jump to, if we look at that's how people are feeling at the moment and really having that kind of connection to how each other are feeling in this place, and again, going back to that honesty bit, hand on heart, if this is kind of where you feel you're at, the first part of this really involves holding that mirror up to ourselves, which, number one, if we do that honesty check, that hand on heart check, then we kind of know the answer to that. Where are we at on a scale of 1 to 10? And I think it really starts with knowing that perhaps you have more to uncover within yourself too. Okay, because remember, going back to what I was saying, we can only take our clients as deep as we ourselves have gone, as far as we have gone. And so potentially, if you're being challenged by the universe with clients that have troubles or challenges or difficulties that you're struggling to help them with, then potentially there's something there that's being reflected and mirrored back to you. Obviously, circumstances can be very different between our lives and our clients' lives, but usually there's a challenge there from the universe and an invitation to go deeper yourself. And this is a really big part of the work that I do with my clients, particularly in the Psychodynamic Coach Academy, where it's about really uncovering and stepping into your true power first. You doing the work first, you going deeper first. On the embodiment level, yes, with the body, but also with the psyche and the various competing parts of that, but also energetically and emotionally too. So I know that everyone who works with me, and I'm sure if you're listening to this podcast, you've got loads of lived wisdom to share, and you have incredible experience, whether you have a business at the moment or not. I'm sure you have amazing courses that you've done and you've upskilled yourself in different areas, and maybe you've come from a corporate background, or, whatever your background is. I know that you've got so much lived wisdom to share. But I think for a lot of people, the thing that really holds them back is that they still feel like a huge imposter for these reasons that I've just shared. And as I said, a huge part of the work that I do in the PCA, the Psychodynamic Coach Academy, is to really help people uncover, what is that unique energetic signature that only you have? So then your clients understand that you're the right person to help them, number one. But number two, that you're really starting to own all parts of you, that you can start showing up and getting visible and getting paid ultimately to be you, but also being paid because you create incredible transformations for your clients as well. So this kind of imposter syndrome can show up in so many different ways. As I said, it kind of stems from this root of potentially knowing that there's more to uncover within yourself and going a bit deeper. This work never ends. It never ends. But knowing if you're getting calls from the universe to go deeper yourself, it's about recognizing that as a signpost to say, okay, let's go there first. Because I think when we ignore this stuff as well, what I've found is that it kind of has that knock-on effect certainly into our business, but also in other areas of our life too. When you think about it, it shows up in comparisons. We'll spend hours looking on Instagram at people who just seem to be getting it right and who seem to be doing amazing things. We get caught up in this comparison world, or we hold ourselves back. We don't want to get visible. Maybe we just, this is another really sneaky one that I see a lot. People just kind of tick the boxes of visibility. Okay, well, I posted every day. I'm done. I'm visible versus actually really allowing themselves to be seen, all parts of themselves, showing up unhindered, not giving two, you know what's about what other people think of you, releasing some of those deeper fears that have been holding them back. You know, so it's kind of like when we don't look at this stuff and when we don't resolve it, it has a knock-on effect, not just in terms of our certainty and our confidence around our coaching craft, but it can show up and hold us back in our business as well. Our growth becomes stagnant. Okay? And typically it's because there's some shadow stuff going on that's holding you back. And so this kind of leads me on to what I wanted to share next. I think that kind of just paints the picture. Okay, I think that paints the picture. And look, the reality is we get into this industry because we're called to it, because we really want to help people. We want to support people. We want to have an impact. We want to do great things in the world. And when I say impact, by the way, people have different definitions of that. So whatever impact means to you, I have clients that when they say they want to make an impact, it means they want to literally work with millions of people and impact millions. And then I have others that are like, do you know what? I would prefer to have a handful of clients, but go really deep with them and have an impact that way. And there's no right or wrong. Okay, it's all based on what you want. But you know that you enter this industry to have a real impact, to really help people and to really support them. And I think we go into this industry with the best will in the world and really great intentions too. But at some point, we kind of have this moment, and sometimes this can happen before we get into the industry as well. Like if we've just been on a personal development journey or a spiritual journey, or maybe we've been in this space, the coaching world, for a while. But you'll notice that when it comes to really helping people create amazing breakthroughs in their life, and this includes us, I put like us individually into this camp as well. Have you ever noticed that a lot of people in this industry talk about this kind of, well, we just need to set better goals, okay? We need to have better conversations with people. We need to better know how to handle people or handle the obstacles. We just need to be and build resilience. We just need to get resourceful. And it's like we kind of hear all of this expert advice that's out there, whether we're being coached by our own coach or whether we've maybe done some other life coaching certifications or courses and things like that. But there's this old way of really creating these shifts and these transformations for ourselves and with our clients. And this is kind of conventional wisdom when you think about it. It's like, right, we've got to focus on what's happening out there. Let's focus on, as I said, having better conversations, choosing better relationships, knowing how to better handle people. And so there's a lot of that advice. And then I would say there's another level of advice that seems to be out there too, which is all around the mindset work. And I'm doing the bunny ears again, the mindset work, which really focuses on things like thinking positive, thought reversals. Well, you're thinking that thought, write it down and then rewrite the opposite thought and repeat that to yourself 10 times a day. Affirmations and incantations, really focusing on and feeling those goals. You know, people talk about you got to really feel your goals. It's not just about setting a vision board anymore. It's like you got to really feel them. Yeah. And so there's a lot of that kind of mindset advice out there too. And then I would also put some of the kind of the solutions that just involve the body out there too. All beautiful work, by the way. When I'm talking about this, it's like all needed, great work. But people who say, well, we just got to focus on the body, moving the energy in the body. And then we've also, that kind of ties into some of the energy work too, or some of the spiritual solutions that are out there. Healing, working with angelic beings or energies or whatever. And it's like these kind of different parts of this expert advice that's out there, all amazing individually, all incredible, all can create amazing shifts. But the thing that I've really noticed, and I've noticed this because of my own personal journey, I went through a really big life challenge and a life change. I've been on a spiritual path since 2012 is when I had my kind of spiritual awakening. And we all know, people who have been on a spiritual journey knows that it doesn't just stop when you awaken. It's like there is a continued set of lessons and evolution that you go through. And so the biggest iteration of that was about 3 years ago. It was at the start of lockdown when my marriage broke down. I went through a lot of trauma. It was a very traumatic end to my marriage. I went through a period of really going into that hermit mode and healing and all of this. But for me, I kind of cycled through this sort of personal development work throughout that time. Obviously, I'd been on a journey for many years, but it's like suddenly my Reiki practitioner, the work that I was doing with my Reiki practitioner wasn't quite hitting the same way it used to. My coach and the work that we would do, some of the mindset work that we would be doing around my business or other areas of my life just wasn't quite connecting the same way it used to. Some of that NLP work, some of the other work that I'd be doing with one of my spiritual, like an astrologer that I worked with too. And it was kind of like I was trying and doing all of these different things separately. And the trouble is, it wasn't working for me the same way that it had done previously on my spiritual journey. And that was because, frankly, some of the work I was doing, like the mindset work and the NLP stuff and some of the belief work that I was doing, belief rewriting and all of that, was kind of working with the conscious mind and my behaviors. So if you think about the human psyche as that iceberg model, literally there's about 5% that sits above the water that can be seen and that's conscious. That 95%, that iceberg, when you think about an iceberg sitting in the ocean, 95% of it's under the water. And that's the equivalent of our subconscious mind. So when it comes to goal setting and moving past challenges and rewriting beliefs and rooting those out, really that's just working with the tip of the iceberg. What we weren't getting to was really understanding what was beneath the water. And I would put my therapeutic work in this case, in this basket too, in the sense of I was seeing a therapist. I've been seeing a therapist for many, many years, by the way. It's something that's really important to me, and therapy is incredible. But also we were just dealing with a lot of what was coming up week to week. And sure, we would look at some of the past and some of the patterns to do with that. But what we weren't doing was working with the actual subconscious mind, all right? And I found that with some of the spiritual work that I was doing, and I was very aware of this, but some of it can border on spiritual bypassing because it doesn't get to the root cause of why, for example, we and many of our clients keep slipping back into old patterns, old behaviors, to keep taking ourselves out despite the best will in the world and despite the best intentions that we have to hit our goals and to make a positive change in our life. Think about it. How many times have you, and I'm like, got my hand up, how many times have you said, I want to do this? And you set a goal and you do your vision board and you think positive around it. You can see it coming together. You feel it in your body. You get into that space of really seeing and living your goal before it's materialized. Yet the next week, you're off doing something to completely sabotage that. Okay, so maybe, for example, if it's a fitness goal, let's just keep it really simple. But if there's a fitness goal, if there's a particular ideal weight or body shape or whatever you're aiming towards, you got the best will in the world, you feel it, you see it, you got your vision board, you see the pictures of how you want to look, how fit you want to feel, but then 2 days later, you're off eating a Big Mac. Why? How is it that the subconscious can really kind of destroy our best laid plans and dreams? Why does that happen? New Year's resolutions is another amazing example, whether that's a fitness goal or whether that is really launching your business this year. Right, I'm going to launch my business this year. Right, this is my year. Okay. Yet come the second week of January, you're like, oh my God, I have to post on social media. This is such a drag. Oh, I really don't want to be doing this. Oh, and you're feeling really contracted energetically around these goals. So what the hell is happening? Why is it that the conscious mind can want one thing, yet it's almost like you've always got one foot on the brake? Why is that? And it's because what we're not doing is really getting into that subconscious piece. A lot of this this old way, I would say this old expert advice, conventional wisdom that's out there, again, individually really beautiful things, and I'm not knocking any of this. I'm trained in many of these different modalities too. I'm a Reiki healer, for example. I'm training to be an astrologer. I'm doing a lot of these different parts too. But I also know that the root cause of what keeps people falling backwards has to do with the subconscious mind, has to do with the old energetic patterns that have been rooted into our nervous system, have to do with not integrating our shadow. It has to do with not being able to communicate with what our subconscious is actually trying to tell us through dream interpretation or through active imagination or through some of the projections that we have. So really being able to speak to the subconscious mind and actively work with that part of us. And sometimes, frankly, there are loads of parts, like disparate parts of us within our subconscious too, okay? We have these different parts, these different competing identities as well. So we have our ego, which is the face that we show to the world, is the face that people know, our personality. Okay, wants one thing usually, but then our subconscious wants another, our shadow wants another. And you fold into that inner child work and all of this sort of stuff. There's a lot happening behind the scenes, beneath the surface, that we need to start working with. And so this is very much why I'm so passionate about this psychodynamic approach to transformation and to change. And so I'm going to talk you through the 5 elements of this and share these with you. And obviously there's the invitation to find out a bit more about the Psychodynamic Coach Academy, which starts on the 19th of June. That's the next cohort. I am offering a $600 discount on your tuition if you get signed up, only for a limited time. All of the details will be linked up around this podcast episode. There's also a extended payment plan and a money back guarantee. I wanted to make this really easy, frankly. If you're looking to sign up, I wanted to make it a no-brainer for you. Okay, so there's lots of great options there for you to sign up. And really, it's for people who are on a personal journey and a professional journey, people who want to take this next step and go deeper themselves, but they're also ready to pay that forward to others. They're either ready to start a coaching practice where they're actually setting themselves up for success from the beginning by having the right foundations and frameworks to help people get great results, or it's for existing coaches or even wellness practitioners and people who really want to start folding psychodynamics into their existing toolkit. All right. So it's all about helping people go deeper, working with things like the psychic split, the ego and the shadow, so the conscious and unconscious parts of us, working with things like our emotional body and also our physical body and the innate intelligence that exists within our body too, to create incredible transformations. And so there's really 5 parts of this psychodynamic approach. And obviously this is all the stuff that we cover in the PCA. But what I've really discovered is the key to lasting change in our lives and in our clients' lives is really this approach that brings together psycho-spirituality. So not just focusing on spirituality and ignoring the psychology, not just focusing on the psychology and ignoring the spirituality. I'm talking about both psycho-spirituality and somatic work. And this is the stuff that honestly moves the needle. And this is why I've been developing this framework for years now. And obviously I'm sharing it in the academy, but it's something that focuses really on Jungian shadow work. And shadow obviously being those repressed and hidden, disenfranchised parts of us that we've had to sort of stuff away into our subconscious mind that really do drive the kind of the show behind the scenes. And it's Jungian shadow work too. So it's not, there's a lot of kind of misinformation out there, I'd say, about what shadow work is. And a lot of people love having the witchy Instagram aesthetics, and the dark feminine is like the kind of the buzzword at the moment. But Jungian shadow work is actually very different. Yes, there can be some dark, disenfranchised parts of us, dark and disenfranchised emotions that maybe we've had to repress over the years. But a huge part of what's in our shadow is light, are our gifts. It's really the gateway to unlocking our purpose in life. Because we can look at our astrology report and say, oh, wow, look, my North Node is in Leo. That means my purpose in life is da, 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 da. Okay. But actualizing those gifts, being able to claim them, means that we've got to clear the path of the subconscious landscape, which is the second part of this psychodynamic approach. That means, yes, looking at our shadows, but it also means looking at, well, what else is within the subconscious? What are the parts of us that have been disenfranchised? What are the parts of us that want to make themselves known, that are holding this back? In what part of our subconscious landscape is the ego, our personality, kind of battling with behind the scenes? What is our ego trying to push down into the subconscious that we have no visibility of? So it's these kind of competing forces within our psyche. So exciting, honestly. But it's like, it's these competing forces that really keep us locked into these old patterns. And the third part of this psychodynamic approach is working with the emotions. Oh my God. So working with the wisdom of emotion. I know that a lot of people, a lot of modalities talk about we've got to feel our emotions. Absolutely, we do. And I remember I was on a journey and I was so, disconnected from my emotional body. It was like I was very numb. Like I had a lot of trauma and things and all of that. And so it took me a really long time to start getting reconnected to my emotional body and some of those emotions that were actually being stuffed down into the subconscious that were coming out in other ways, somatic ways, TMJ. I had disordered eating for a long time. I've really been through it in terms of how these emotions actually live and exist within our bodies. And so actually working with the wisdom of our emotions, because here's the little trick I'll tell you, which is if we have a shadow part of us, for example, just say there's a really rebellious part of us that was never allowed to live or breathe or exist growing up. These parts of us are very much usually part of our wounded child and some traumas and other conditioning and things. But just say there's a really rebellious part of us that we've never really owned, we've never really integrated, we don't even really know we have. We've sort of forgotten about that part, okay? Quite often, it's not just the shadow part that sits unconscious. There's also a coexisting emotion that sits with it too. For example, like fear or like anger. Okay. And so the emotions really do exist kind of like the super glue that holds a lot of these psychic structures in place, right? The emotions are the things, for example, that our ego regulates. So just say we start to feel angry. It's never okay to be angry. So our anger bubbles up from the subconscious and our ego quickly slaps it away. Don't feel anger. You're not an angry person. You're a spiritual person. Chill the hell out. It's not okay to be angry. You look stupid when you're angry. So the ego plays this role as well in kind of regulating a lot of what's coming up from the subconscious mind. So it's a really powerful, almost like a playing field. If you think of it like a playing field or a battlefield sometimes as well, of these different parts of us that are kind of batting parts away, shoving things down, forcing things up, pushing things to the side. This is why it's called dynamic, psychodynamic process, because it's about working with all of these competing forces within our psyche. And how can we start to bring these into better alignment with who we are, what we desire, our true self? Because all of this is about individuation and becoming the best version of us. And, the fourth part, and this is one of the things that I absolutely love working with when it comes to psychodynamics, it's all about imagination, intuitive felt sense as well. Active imagination is one of the core tools that we use to work with our subconscious. And it's such a beautiful tool. And there's so much that obviously I work through with my clients. I teach them how to work with this as a tool and as a language of the subconscious, how to interpret it, how to work with the client with this stuff. But for people who say that our imagination has no place in healing, or that it's just all made up, or it's just all in our heads, well, that's exactly the freaking point, right? Is that imagination is the thing that our subconscious uses to communicate with us. But how we actively use that and interpret that in a way that gives real light as to some of those repressed parts and what needs to be seen and heard is a real art. Okay. And this is a huge part of what I teach too. Obviously, is one of the main tools that I share with people around how to work not only with yourself, but with your clients on their imagination. Dreams can also be a part of this as well, archetypes as well, where we start to begin tapping into the collective unconscious too. And then finally, the fifth and final part of the psychodynamic approach is somatic work. Now, somatics doesn't typically sit in psychodynamics as a field. Somatics is all about working with that intelligent wisdom of the body. And it can range obviously from the very real somatic work of chiropractor, massage, all of that sort of stuff, right through to energetic kind of working with the subtle bodies of the physical body too, and the physical form. And so we tend to work with that innate energetic intelligence of the body. And for me, this this is huge when it comes to psychodynamics. I don't know how this has kind of been excluded from the field for so long, because a lot of what's happening in our bodies is subconscious. Okay. We know, for example, if we've got a pain in the leg, okay, because it's a pain in the leg and it's our body telling us, oh, you bumped your leg, or you got a bruise or whatever, or you've got something going on with your leg. But there's so much actually working underneath the surface that we have no idea about. And yeah, that includes very real biological processes too. We don't know or see or understand our hormonal system, for example. It's subconscious to us because we can't see it. We can't get our arms around it. We can't measure it in terms of just our eyes and being able to look at it with our senses. Okay? It's kind of something that we need to tap into. And that's through medicine and testing and da-da-da-da. Well, it's the same with the energetic body too. A lot of the time we don't understand where some of those stuck energies are. And we can start to kind of fold Reiki into this too, and focalizing. And so there's some beautiful ways to work with the subtle body, the subtle bodies that are actually part of the physicality of us as well. And so it's like these kind of 5 elements that come together, these psycho-spiritual and somatic elements that come together into this beautiful system, this beautiful framework that really helps people create incredible results. And so they're the kind of the five pillars, if you like. And of course, these are the things that we go into a lot of detail on in the PCA. But the reason why it works is because when you combine those things together and you're not just looking at the conscious mind and setting better goals and saying better affirmations or doing your thought reversals and things like that, it actually works because it's not coming from a place that says that you're broken or you need fixing somehow. It's actually promoting this return to and a remembering of your wholeness. So this isn't about, for example, shadow, all your shadow, that's all your sort of your broken parts. All these are the parts of you that we need to get rid of. We're not getting rid of anything in psychodynamics. We're opening up our arms and we're welcoming it all in. This is the difference. And a lot of people say, oh, but I don't want to welcome in my anger. What does that just mean? I'm going to be an angry person? No, of course not. But by opening your arms up to your hidden anger, A, knowing that it's there in the first place, B, understanding where it sits in your body, but then C, opening up your arms to it and inviting it in and integrating it, actually doing the work to integrate this stuff. I mean, this is where the real power is. Suddenly our anger doesn't feel so bitey, doesn't feel like it wants to fly up in a rage out of seemingly nowhere. So we have better control over this stuff too, which promotes more peace, more joy, because we're not at the whim of our emotions all the time. And it's this remembering of wholeness too, because our wholeness isn't just the light, lovely parts of us. To be whole means to know our darknesses as well, our wounds, our challenges. And it's not an excuse to go out and be an asshole, okay? None of that. I often hear people doing that too. It's like, oh, well, that's just my shadow, haha. No, that's a really immature way to look at shadow work, right? It's about, looking at your inner asshole, because we've all got one. Some people just have a personality of being that way, but a lot of us, I'd say a lot of people who are coaches in particular, are really good, lovely, people-pleasing type people quite often. But it's like, well, what would happen if you opened yourself up to the wisdom of your inner asshole? What wisdom does he or she, they have to offer? Working with the wisdom there. And so this is where it's really about working with the holistic elements of the subconscious mind too. This is why it works. The elements of the subconscious mind, the spirituality piece and the body. So it's not just doing the work around the spirituality and forsaking the body or bypassing the mind, demonizing the mind. I've seen this a lot too in certain spiritual circles. It's like, oh, you're too in your head. And that may be the case, but our mind is so incredibly powerful and it cannot be written off as ego or something that we need to sort of kill off and get more into our body around. So it's kind of like, it's about bringing these things together and healing and working through and integrating on all of these different levels. And this is why it works. It's about calling all of this stuff forward and into the light of the conscious mind. So we then have true freedom of choice as well. And I really believe that this approach and these tips that I shared with you today, obviously I know this is sort of a 45-minute podcast, but it's about knowing yourself versus just believing in yourself versus jumping up and down and doing all of your, kind of pumping yourself up. And that's really cool. And I love that. And we also need to know ourselves fully and completely. So many people don't know themselves. We like to think we know ourselves. But my challenge is, again, going back to the hand on heart exercise, is we don't know what we don't know sometimes. And shadow work is an endless journey, I think, personally. There's always parts of us that we don't know, but it is about knowing ourselves to the best of our ability at the right time in our lives, according to the universe's time scale. Yes, there are certain things I believe that we're not supposed to know at certain times too, and that's okay. But it's really about knowing ourselves to the point where we no longer feel like that freaking imposter, bringing this back to the start and what people are really struggling with. It's when you know yourself and you know your gifts, you know your blind spots, and you've integrated them and you've worked with some of the emotions and you've gone deeper yourself and you understand where some of that stuckness is in your energy and you've integrated it and you've resolved it. You don't feel like an imposter anymore. You feel like you absolutely freaking belong in your full magnitude and strength and power as an individual. There's no way you can feel like an imposter when you know yourself deeply and sincerely. Let that, just listen to that back. Rewind that bit. You cannot feel like an imposter when you know yourself fully and completely and you trust yourself and you're showing up in the full expression and the full magnitude of who you are. Okay. And it works because of that. But it also means that we're working with the problem, whether that's our clients who just seem to struggle over and over and over, whether it's ourselves with our confidence stuff and our imposter stuff and all of the things. It's about working with the problem at its root, getting in, looking into the shadow, looking back in the timeline, and really working with the problem at its root. What's been repressed? What's been denied? What's been undervalued? What didn't bring us love? How have we built up an entire persona and personality around some of that stuff? And how can we then welcome some of those wounds back in and look at them and heal them and work with their wisdom? That's what this is all about. So I'm feeling the call that that's the end of what I wanted to share. Okay. So I was kind of like, right, stop. So I heard that message. So I'm paying attention to that message. So I'm going to stop it there. As I said, I would really invite you, if this work is calling to you, I would really invite you to check out the Psychodynamic Coach Academy. Summer class starts on the 19th of June. So that's very, very soon, just around the corner. I am offering a summer class bonus as well of $600 off the tuition. I also have 2 payment plans. They're interest-free payment plans that you can choose from. There's a 10-day money-back guarantee as well. I've wanted to make this really easy for people who feel super called to do this work. I would invite you to check it out. The link will be somewhere around this podcast episode. And as I said, it's really for people who are ready to deepen their craft as a coach, but who are also ready and courageous enough to go into this deeper level of exploration and healing and individuation. Yes, this is a coaching certification. Yes, you will be certified at the end of it, but really it's about this greater spiritual and personal development work that, and thing that I've found about the people who are joining the program at the moment, it's the right time for them to join in terms of they've been doing a lot of this work, but they're ready to go deeper. And their soul has called them to go deeper. The universe has sort of shown them that's the time to go deeper as well. No coincidences with any of this. And so if it's really niggling you, if it's really calling you, feel free to check out the program page. On the program page, if you read through all of the information, the pricing details are towards the bottom of the page. If you're ready to get enrolled, or even if you just have questions, you will see on the page there are red buttons, and those red buttons will allow you to book a call with me. Okay, so it's not just one of those programs where you can enroll in it and just pay from the program page. We need to have a conversation. Okay, it's got to be the right fit for you. It's got to be the right fit for the container as well. I really want to make sure that you're at the right stage in your journey as well. And obviously I want to give you the chance to have any questions answered that you have too. So I'd encourage you, just check out the page, number one. Number two, if you've read through all of the information, including the pricing option, so there's no surprises there when we get onto a call, then just book your call with me. We can chat this week. In the next couple of days, there's time in my calendar. You'll see that. Choose a time that works for you, and then we'll jump on and we'll have a chat at that time. Okay. So I hope this episode served you. As always, have an amazing week. Thank you so much for your continued support and your listening, and I'll see you next time. Bye. Thanks so much for tuning in to the Big Talk podcast today. If you have enjoyed this episode, then please do leave us a review and share it with your friends. For further information about our programs and free content, head on over to lightpurposeliving.com. See you soon.